So I don't have a fun little thing at the beginning of this video this time, but I have a stained shirt. Is that cool? I don't know. Let's just get into this video. I'm excited for this week's video, mostly because I get to dive into a genre that I probably won't get to travel through too much throughout this whole channel. Maybe here and there, but we'll get into that. If you don't know, I am Noah Price. This is the show called Hidden Values, where I go and talk about RPGs and JRPGs, whether classics or indie games like today's game. What I like to do is I like to present the values that are hidden within these games. Just personally, as a Christian, I believe it's important for, well, non-Christians and specifically Christians to understand and just to be aware of possible influences that are in games. But today, as I mentioned before, today we're going to be covering the roguelike genre. Well, not just the roguelike genre, because of course, this channel does focus just on RPGs and JRPGs. So this roguelike actually has that. And this game just came out 2 weeks ago, give or take. It's called Tainted Grail Conquest. But what is Tainted Grail? Well, I'm glad you asked. Tainted Grail is a unique, infinitely replayable, story-driven hybrid between a deck-building roguelite and an RPG game. Explore the ever-changing maps, fight with deadly enemies, and learn what happened to the cursed island of Avalon. Now, Tainted Grail is very much a dark emphasis game. So far, almost all the games I've covered so far has a dark theme to it. But this game very much emphasizes that darkness with its madness and dark-rooted characters. Outside of that, it might have been obvious to some people, but with the title itself calling Tainted Grail, this is very much a twisted parallel universe, you could see it as, towards the mythos of the Holy Grail. So some of the things that you will commonly just find throughout the game are witches, pagan worshippers, and also just the huge emphasis on madness. Or in this game, it's called weirdness. Basically how they justify the roguelike mechanic style and just the atmosphere is time periods mixed together. As you play through the game, you learn more about the story and the context of what's going on. This is a game where you start off with knowing not a whole lot, and you learn from NPCs and different story elements of what's going on and what is the precursor to this apocalyptic time period. As mentioned before, the emphasis and the theme of the story of this game has to do with King Arthur. But alongside that, it's King Arthur, but with a twist. Instead of the Holy Grail, it's the Tainted Grail. Now, this may make some of you guys who came to watch this video run away, which is totally fine, I understand. But I will not be covering the end story of the game. Now, if you don't know, if you haven't played the game at all and you're just first time looking into this, what this game does is it kind of locks its end story behind completing the game. Not quite completing the game, but you have to do all the side quests and stuff like that. It makes sense on a story sense, but it's very much a pain in the butt. If it was just a normal RPG, this wouldn't be too bad, but because it is within a roguelike sphere of having to complete the same task over and over and over, it became, one, just very tedious after a bit and very monotonous, to the sense where some games has this and it's like, all right, it's fine, it's excusable, but this game, I don't know, it kind of sucked the soul from it. You just have to complete all the side quests, you have to do all the stuff. It tells you what you have to do. I never got there, and I can explain why. I tried my hardest, and this is the reason why it's taken so long for me to get this video out. I was hoping to get it out within a week, but that didn't happen. And I mean, understandably, because it is a roguelike, it's not meant to be played so quickly. It's meant to like extend for a long time. I was gonna be able to beat the game's story and get to find out the end story, and that's basically what I was planning on covering for this game. Again, I'm sorry for not doing that, but a problem happened. I didn't complete the main story, not because the game is a roguelike, so it's supposed to take forever, but because the game is also an RPG, the devs did put in certain mechanics and just things so that you can complete the story and it won't take 1,000 hours. The game's devs did say that when looking, it's supposed to take around 30 to 31 hours to complete the game's story. I am not there. I'm at about 51 hours, and I'll explain why. So I came close to completing the game's story, completing all the side quests, but I came into a problem with 2 side quests. One of them, well, probably 2 of them, are stuck with bugs. So one of them is just you can't complete because of a bug. The other one is it's either a really extremely hard RNG side of things, like there's, I don't know, it's too extreme on that side, or it also has a bug and it's broken. I don't know which one, but I can't complete the game, so I couldn't complete the story, and I want to get this video out to you guys, so here I am. But this video isn't just some kind of apology video about not completing the game. I do have some content here. Let's talk about Arthur. And, well, let's kind of. So, while researching for this video, I found out I did not know a lot about the mythos of Arthurian? Yeah, Arthurian mythos. That whole thing, I didn't know a lot about it, funny enough. And that's probably okay because the canon of this mythos is very all over the place. So a lot of elements of what we may know of the story of Arthur and his knights and all the aspects, including the Holy Grail, is all over the place of what is considered true, what is correct, what is different, and there's just constantly changes, and we're not going to get into all that because this isn't some kind of history channel, but it is very fascinating to learn up on some of those things. Now, there is 2 main aspects I want to cover when talking about the mythos of Arthurian mythos that's within this game. The first one has to do a little bit with the problems of the Arthurian mythos and also with the creators and their point of view when creating the game. And the second one has to do more with the contradictions and the differences between that mythos and the game itself. As I mentioned before, the King Arthur mythos and all that idea has been changed a lot throughout the years. Well, throughout the centuries. Long time, not just a few years. As the creators of this game pointed out, they really loved this mythos, and they pointed back to how when making this game, they really wanted to focus on the roots. Now, a lot of people believe a bunch of different things about the Arthurian mythos. That's why there's so much problems of the canon itself. A lot of people believe that there was a person called Arthur. Some believe that he was king. Some believe he wasn't king. There's a bunch of things and a lot of problems with trying to understand what is true with the Arthurian mythos. But the creators of Tainted Grail, they believe and they took the stance that he was alive. He was someone that he wasn't necessarily king, but he was a military general. In some regards, this is a stark contrast to the Arthur that we see nowadays in modern media. In modern media, we either see him as a really good husband, a good leader, and maybe sometimes a romantic, or we see him the opposite as a failed husband. And in general, the story of Arthur has to do a lot more with romance and love. Now, these aspects of the love and romance that we see in Arthur, and is sometimes made known as the character, is something that actually was implemented centuries down the line. So the creators wanted to go back to the roots and kind of chop off that romance side of things of the story. But even with the beginning stages of beginning records of what we know of the Arthur's mythos, a big problem still stood, or really began to happen, and that is the problem of syncretism. Now, syncretism, it's the idea of blending 2 things together, and this is what we find. Normally, you'll see it here and there with religious syncretism, where it's 2 religions getting mixed together. We see this a lot like later on with the Holy Grail, of painting the Arthur mythos with a Christian outlook. The problem with this is while that happens, we still get a lot of aspects of Celtic belief and paganism with that. And it's very odd because throughout this whole idea of the story of Arthur, we just, throughout centuries, as stuff gets added to the story or to the canon, it gets more and more just mixed together. You would think that one and the other would get pulled apart and taken away, but they just keep on getting added. So there's a lot of weird Christian elements, but also a lot of pagan elements. And syncretism as a whole is just a scary aspect, at least for me as a Christian. Christianity has some standards, and one of them, as mentioned in the last episode, there's a lot of things that it talks about where this is the one path, you shall worship only one God, and it really separates itself from other religions. And as I mentioned within this game, there's some pagan worshippers, there's witches, there's these other beliefs, but the game doesn't promote a lot of Christian beliefs. Some of this has to do with the idea that the Christian aspect wasn't actually implemented into the original roots of the Arthurian mythos. And throughout the game, the creators just in general didn't really care to put in that Christian belief. But what the developers actually did do is kind of interesting because it does fit in with this belief or this mindset of syncretism. Now, this is probably not a shock to a lot of people, but the creators of Tainted Grail really encouraged their own team to put in whatever influences or inspirations that they wanted into the game. The creators of Tainted Grail said that this is mostly out of the idea that while they are willing to cut out certain romance and other aspects that they kind of found actually boring, like they're just being truthful. They're like, we love this mythos of the Arthurian mythos, but like there's some aspects that's boring, so we'll just chop it off. And so alongside that, they looked at, well, what is not boring? What do we actually like? And just following with that sentiment, they just went in and be like, well, there's other things we like of just some inspirations for our day to day, that why not put that in too if it stands out? So embedded in the game, there is a lot of like pop culture and TV iconic things that happens within the story, even to the point where there is some romance in this game. It's just not focused in the same way that King Arthur mythos has become to be known today. At the end of the day, as much as they are willing to chop off some romance from the modern day Arthurian mythos and also add in some pop culture ideas, the creators still wanted to focus on the key figures that we see within the mythos of Arthurian legends. The difference though is they took a different approach to this. They didn't want these figures to be glorified like how they seem to be in the beginning of their stories, but instead they wanted to take them back even farther to before they became these known figures that we know today, and start them from where they started. And throughout this game, they really wanted to focus on with completing these side quests and just interacting with different NPCs, you get to see them become more like the figures that we know today. And this idea of focusing more of the journey of these characters growing is back to what the Arthurian mythos was really truly about. Like, even to the point of the whole idea of the Holy Grail, the point of that was never to actually gain this Holy Grail so that you can do something with it. It was actually meant as a journey to gain knowledge that Pervious was supposed to have from the beginning. But with all those influences that we see with this game and how it interacts with it, again, just a clear difference is that this game is supposed to be a more twisted look at the Arthurian mythos. As the creators put it, it's a grimdark look at it, which now grimdark is almost its own subgenre to itself, and it really focuses on the idea of taking something known and twisting it to a darker atmosphere. And we really see this differences not only with the setting of the whole game being set within weirdness or this craziness that happens, but we just see it different with the NPCs that we interact with. They're not so good as characters we might know them as. Of course, I should probably say this at this point. I haven't mentioned it, but like, these characters don't have the same names as we might know them for in Arthurian mythos. You aren't going to see Lancelot and whatnot. We do see some things with like Merlin and Arthur itself, but like Even Merlin has its own different name. But the biggest difference is we don't see these characters as being pure or brave or courageous like is the main focus of the Arthurian mythos and those characters in that. And this just falls in line simply with the creator's idea of not wanting to display these figures as power fantasy characters, but instead as real broken characters. But those are some of the influences and hidden values that I found within this game. Again, sorry for not getting to the whole main story, the end goal thing. Literally, it was going to have to do with something along the lines of a good balance, a balancing between good and evil. I'll just mention a little bit here. There was just a fun aspect that the game proposed of your enemy isn't necessarily the enemy, but you guys are both good. It very much reminded me of any idea of war and how on the other side, you are the enemy to them. And they are the good side over there. And really much proposed that question while alongside really genuinely saying that both of you guys are the good side and that there's someone else who's the bad guy. But if you liked the video, thanks. I hope you liked it. I don't know. But I have plenty of other videos on the channel if you want to go check that out. And if you want to mind, leave a like.